30,000 feet over the North Atlantic, an oven timer has just gone off. Dinner is ready. This is a KC-135 Stratotanker, and it's basically a flying gas station. One with no counter, no burner, and no sad rotating hot dogs. And yet, that oven is somehow turning out pizzas. The Air Force spends about $500 million a year feeding its people across 172 dining facilities worldwide. Some of those kitchens are not on the ground, and feeding a crew up there breaks nearly every rule a kitchen on Earth runs on. Cooking up here means solving problems no restaurant on Earth has. Open flames are forbidden, the electricity runs at a frequency your house has never seen, and the crew's sense of taste is quietly failing. This is how the military cooks anyway. The thing is, hunger at altitude is not a comfort problem, it's a performance problem. An unfed, fading crew is flying a 300,000-pound aircraft while making decisions measured in feet and seconds. And some of these missions can run hours or days at a time, and there usually ain't much time to pull over for McDonald's on the way. Tech Sergeant Corey Howard runs food production for the 786th Force Support Squadron at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. And he states the doctrine plainly: there is no mission without nutrition. No food in the tank, no gas to go anywhere. The Air Force files a hot meal in the same category as jet fuel, something the mission burns. So the fleet carries kitchens. KC-135 keeps a small galley all the way back here, an oven and a water boiler just forward of the boom operator station. The C-17 Globemaster III can roll an entire kitchen and bathroom module up its ramp on a standard cargo pallet. Crews call it the comfort pallet. And one aircrew member summed up flying with it for task and purpose. No smell, hot meals, and 2 toilets. In the airlift world, that counts as luxury with a part number. The alternative explains the enthusiasm. Without the pallet, hundreds of troops spend half a day sealed in a cargo hold, living on packaged rations. The aircrew interviewed in that same article spent most of their quotes describing the smell. On a full airlifter, a hot meal is also, functionally, air freshener. And one aircraft goes far beyond all of them. Its galley was built to feed a crew for days without landing. And the reason that plane exists is genuinely unsettling. Hold on to that detail. It comes back later in the story at a much darker altitude. First, the machine itself. The moment you try to build a kitchen inside an airplane, physics starts saying no. Every Air Force galley obeys one commandment above all others: no open flame. Ever. A fire at altitude, inside a sealed pressurized tube, surrounded by oxygen systems and tens of thousands of pounds of fuel, is close to a death sentence. So there's no gas burner anywhere in the sky, no grill, no flat top. Everything that gets hot on an aircraft gets hot with electricity. And aircraft electricity is its own strange country. Electrical power doesn't flow one way like water down a pipe. It reverses direction, back and forth. And hertz is just the count of how many times it does that every second. Your wall outlet flips 60 times a second. An Air Force jet flips 400 times, nearly 7 times faster at 115 volts. Think of it as deliveries. Your house gets one big truck 60 times a second. The jet gets a small van 400 times a second. The same amount of cargo arrives either way, but only one of them has to be bolted to an airframe. That is the entire reason 400 hertz exists. The faster the cycle, the smaller the transformer or motor needed to move the same power. Engineers at FCX Systems describe the original payoff in wonderful terms. A motor the size of a watermelon was replaced by one the size of a large soup can, and it did the same work. On an aircraft, every safe pound becomes range, cargo, or fuel. Follow the power from the engine out here, through the generators, all the way back to the galley wall. The oven that bakes the crew's pizza runs on the same weight-saving logic that keeps the whole plane in the air. The oven itself is a convection unit, usually 2 to 4 kilowatts. It blows hot air through stacked trays in a galley the size of a broom closet. Then crews load standard aluminum trays, set a programmed heating cycle, and wait. The rest of the galley works the same quiet way. Chillers keep the raw food cold. Beverage makers plumb straight into the aircraft's potable water and can brew a full carafe in 2 to 3 minutes. And a controller called a Galley Power Management Unit referees all of it. If the oven, The water boiler and the coffee maker demand power at once. It sheds load by priority. So dinner never trips a breaker on a military aircraft. A kitchen that negotiates with the plane for electricity. But here's the part most people never consider. The oven at 30,000 feet is the last step of a kitchen that starts on the ground. That's the real answer to how military aircraft cook hot meals at altitude. They mostly finish them there. At Ramstein, near the flight line, the 786th Force Support Squadron runs the Jawbone Flight Kitchen around the clock. Aircrew order from a menu of 11 entrees and 4 supplement options. The kitchen preps the food and packs it into flight boxes. Then Fleet Services drives it out to the jet. When a recent medical evacuation mission needed 180 meals, the Jawbone team got less than 6 hours of notice. The meals made the plane. This is the pattern across all of aviation. Kitchens on the ground cook the food and chill it fast. It gets sealed into standardized metal containers, known in the industry as Atlas boxes, that slide into galley racks like drawers. Then the crew brings it back to life in the oven at altitude. The scale of that ground operation is easy to underestimate. In fiscal year 2012 alone, the Air Force spent roughly $500 million on food services by Air and Space Force's magazine's count. That budget runs 172 dining facilities plus flight kitchens around the world. Every hot tray at altitude sits on top of that pyramid. The chilling matters as much as the cooking. Food left warm becomes a bacterial playground, and food poisoning in a cockpit is a flight safety emergency, not a stomachache. So meals get cooked, dropped fast through the danger zone of temperature, and kept cold until the oven at altitude finishes the job. Old aircrew habits guard the system too. By long-standing aviation practice, pilots on the same flight often eat different meals, so a single bad batch can't take down both of them. The menu is a redundancy system. One more enemy waits at cruise altitude, and this one lives inside the crew. A pressurized cabin doesn't feel like sea level. It feels like standing on a 6,000 to 8,000 foot mountain, in air drier than the Sahara Desert, beside 85 decibels of engine noise. So what does that environment do to the human tongue? In 2010, Lufthansa hired the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany to find out. Researchers sealed test subjects inside an Airbus A310 fuselage in a giant pressure chamber and fed them. Sensitivity to salt fell by up to 30%, and sweetness fell by roughly 20 to 30%. At altitude, a third of your sense of taste simply stays on the ground. If you have ever found airline food bland, this is your reason. Noise piles on. A 2011 study in the journal Food Quality and Preference measured background sound above 80 decibels, roughly a wide-body cabin. It suppresses sweetness further while boosting savory flavors. The same research explains a strange airline tradition. Tomato juice, flat and forgettable on the ground, turns bright and mineral in the sky because savory flavors survive the altitude. So aircraft food gets seasoned harder than restaurant food, and hot, salty, rich dishes win while delicate ones die quietly. A pizza is not an indulgence up there. It's one of the few meals engineered to beat the cabin. Machines and chemistry only carry the meal to the oven door. Someone still has to cook. The Air Force employs flight attendants, real ones, in uniform, wearing aircrew wings. The career field has a designation instead of a name, 1A6X1. And its official duty list reads like 2 jobs stapled together. Plan all menus, purchase and prepare the food, store and preserve it. Serve meals and beverages in flight. Then the second half begins. Operate the aircraft doors and exits, provide emergency medical care, take responsibility for evacuating every soul on board, which makes them the only airmen on that aircraft qualified to handle both kinds of well done. The kind he gives you when you order a steak, and the kind you give him when he pulls you out of a burning airframe. Cooking is not a soft skill in this career. It's a written promotion requirement. To advance past the apprentice level, the Air Force demands documented culinary experience, listed in the official specialty description right beside mission planning. The pipeline treats food the way it treats every aircrew skill. Candidates finish a formal flight attendant course, then train on the specific aircraft they're assigned to, then face periodic evaluations to keep their qualification. Fail the check ride? Lose the galley. These airmen fly the Special Air Mission Fleet, the aircraft that carry the Secretary of Defense. members of Congress, and presidential support teams around the world. One documented trip had a crew of 7 flight attendants sustaining a Secretary of State mission for 19 straight days. The work starts days before takeoff, and the duty list includes a detail worth savoring. The specialty description requires flight attendants to purchase the food themselves. Before a Secretary of Defense mission, an airman goes shopping, cart and menu plan in hand for one of the most protected passengers on Earth. Their performance records reads like a line cook's ticket rail, if the restaurant were moving at 500 knots. One flight attendant logged 400 meals served across 50 flight hours on presidential support missions. Another led the cabin crew on a Secretary of Defense flight into Iraq and managed 215 meals through multiple mission changes. The secretary praised the work personally. Picture the working conditions. The galley is cramped, the floor vibrates and moves. The oven runs on a power budget set by the aircraft, and turbulence doesn't care that your trays are out. Most military aircraft carry no flight attendant at all. There, the crew feeds itself. On a tanker, the boom operator cooks. Consider what that job already involves. By the Air Force's own description, a boom operator pumps thousands of pounds of fuel into another aircraft flying at 200 knots. The two planes sit just 47 feet from a collision. Then, between refuelings, that same airman walks to the galley, slides trays into the oven, and sets a timer. On a C-17, the loadmaster does it. Cooking is simply another aircrew duty, learned the way the Air Force teaches everything, by checklist, then by repetition, then by pride. And beneath all of them work the ground crews of the meal itself, the flight kitchen airmen who start before sunrise so a jet somewhere can eat at noon. At Whitman Air Force Base, the in-flight kitchen runs on 6 airmen and 3 civilian contractors, 9 people feeding the sky. Back at Ramstein, Tech Sergeant Howard, the man with the fuel doctrine from earlier, gave the simplest account of why anyone does this job. He said he loves being able to feed people, to produce something good that keeps them moving through the day. Strip away the aircraft, the pallets, and the 400 hertz electricity, and that is the entire system in one sentence. Someone, somewhere, decided the crew should eat well tonight. The skill that keeps morale alive on a 6-month deployment is the same one that pulls a hot tray out of a vibrating oven over the ocean. The Air Force solved cooking in the sky with ovens and electricity. Then it faced the opposite problem: feeding people with no aircraft, no kitchen, and no power at all. Remember Rule 1 from the galley? No open flame, ever? On the ground, in combat, the same rule returns for a different reason. A cooking fire can reveal a position, so the military's field ration, the MRE, heats itself with rust. For most of the 20th century, soldiers improvised. They boiled ration pouches in water when they could. They left them in the sun when they couldn't. And the desperate ones laid them on hot vehicle engines. What none of them knew, sitting on a hillside waiting for an engine block to warm a foil pouch, was that the fix had already been in development for years. The Army began chasing a chemical answer in 1973, 17 years to reinvent the campfire. The heater first shipped in May of 1990. By 1993, one rode inside every single MRE. It's a 14-gram pad holding powdered magnesium, powdered iron, and ordinary table salt. Pour in about an ounce of water, and the salt water turns those metal particles into thousands of microscopic, short-circuited batteries. The patent holders named the process supercorroding galvanic cells, which is a beautiful phrase for controlled rusting. The pad starts boiling within seconds, and the military specification is exact. It must raise an 8-ounce entree by 100 degrees Fahrenheit within 12 minutes with no visible flame. Then the soldier slides the pouch and the steaming pad back into the cardboard box, props it upright, and waits. The printed instructions famously suggest leaning it against a rock or something. That phrase, a rock or something, has survived every revision. Somewhere at the Pentagon, that is settled doctrine. Since then, one company, Luxfer Magtech, has built nearly 3 billion of them. The no-flame rule from the sky followed all the way down to its logical extreme: fire replaced by chemistry. And here is the punchline the FAA discovered later. The heaters release small amounts of hydrogen gas as they work, enough that federal testing flagged them as a potential hazard aboard passenger aircraft. The military's flameless heater, invented so soldiers would never need fire, is itself not welcome on a plane. When a whole unit needs feeding and no cook is available, the military scales the same idea up. The unitized Group Ration Express is nicknamed the kitchen in a carton. Pull a single tab and wait 30 to 45 minutes. The box then serves a complete hot meal for 18 people, sealed in steam table trays. Each serving averages 1,300 calories by the Defense Logistics Agency specification. Dining trays, utensils, coffee, and a bottle of hot sauce ride along in the carton. No cooks, no fuel, no power, no equipment. Dinner issued like ammunition. And when the Air Force needs a real kitchen in a real field, it flies one in. The next time you see soldiers fed hot food far from any base, look for a folded metal box. The single pallet expeditionary kitchen folds a full kitchen onto one standard cargo pallet, the same size that slides onto a C-17. Per the Defense Logistics Agency, it is designed to feed about 550 people 3 hot meals a day. Its newer version, the E-Spec, has a party trick. 2 people unlatch the sides, and in under 15 minutes the box unfolds into a full kitchen. 2 hours to stand it up, 4 hours to the first hot tray. Its closed combustion burners cut fuel use by well over half. In April of 2023, a Mississippi National Guard helicopter carried one through the sky on a sling, a complete kitchen dangling under a Black Hawk. Then, in a 2023 exercise, the Guam Air National Guard found the honest limit. A kitchen can fly, but water is heavy. Their E-Spec ran fine until a water truck broke, and the whole unit fell back onto packaged rations for 2 days. When Michigan's 127th Force Support Squadron stood up its first E-Spec on March 6, 2024, the crew served grilled burgers and warm chocolate chip cookies within an hour of setup. Fresh cookies from a box that fell out of the sky. Every kitchen in this story, from the tanker galley to the pallet in a field, stands on a supply chain. The food is only as hot as the logistics behind it, which puts every kitchen in this story on one spectrum. At one end, a rusting pad in a soldier's pocket. At the other end, the aircraft from the opening, the one nobody wants to see take off. It's called the E-4B Nightwatch, and it exists for the worst day in human history. It started in late 1974, at the height of the Cold War, with a version called the E-4A. The upgraded B model arrived in January 1980, and the whole fleet was converted by 1985. What the planners didn't know was how long they were building for. Half a century later, those same 4 airframes are still the ones on alert. For 2 decades, one of these aircraft sat waiting at Andrews Air Force Base at all times, engines ready. The president could board within minutes of a crisis, and when the president steps aboard, the aircraft's call sign changes to Air Force One. The name has a gentler origin than the mission. The squadron's first commander borrowed it from Rembrandt's painting, The Night Watch, ordinary townsfolk standing guard over their town. The Air Force keeps 4 of them, heavily modified Boeing 747s based at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. Their job is to become the Pentagon if the Pentagon is gone. Officially, the aircraft is the National Airborne Operations Center. Unofficially, everyone calls it the Doomsday plane. It's shielded against the electromagnetic pulse of a nuclear blast. It carries up to 112 people, the largest crew of any aircraft in Air Force history. With aerial refueling, it can stay airborne for days, limited only by the oil in its engines. At $159,529 per flight hour, it is the most expensive aircraft the Air Force flies. The Nightwatch even has a day job. Between alerts, it carries the Secretary of Defense on international trips, a practical use for an aircraft that must always be ready to fly anyway. The delegations aboard get fed from the same galley built for the apocalypse. Much of what sits inside the Nightwatch remains classified. What the Air Force does describe sounds like flying headquarters. There's a conference room, a briefing room, and a workspace for a joint service battle staff. And the communications gear can reach anyone, anywhere, through the worst day imaginable. Read down the list of compartments, though, and one entry sits strangely among other war rooms. Where does a battle staff of 112 eat? Right here in the forward entry area, past the stairway up to the flight deck, the designers installed a kitchen. Not a snack station, a true galley with refrigerators, freezers, 2 convection ovens, and a microwave built to produce more than 100 hot meals on a prolonged mission. The planners who engineered a plane for nuclear war worked through their requirements, the shielding, the communications, the survivability, and then added a working restaurant. The math behind it is brutally simple. If that day ever comes, the people aboard may be running a war for as long as the fuel keeps arriving, and they'll need to stay sharp for every hour of it. An army marches on its stomach. So, apparently, would the end of the world. The details get quieter and stranger the deeper you look. And all the way back here, the aft main deck holds the crew rest area with bunks, food storage, and a space the Air Force notes is also used for religious ceremonies. Sleep, dinner, and prayer, engineered into the same airframe as nuclear command and control. In April 2024, the Air Force awarded Sierra Nevada Corporation the contract to build the Nightwatch's replacement. Whatever that new aircraft looks like inside, one thing is certain to survive the redesign: the kitchen. And if you're wondering whether anyone has ever truly needed all of this, that's the point. The Nightwatch exists so nobody ever finds out. There is something almost tender in that design choice. Every requirement on that aircraft was written to survive the end of the world. One of them was dinner. Step back and you can see the whole pattern at once. The United States military treats a hot meal as a piece of equipment. It gets a power budget on a tanker, a pallet position on a C-17, a chemical engine in a soldier's pack, and a galley on the doomsday plane. Morale is a consumable, like fuel, and the military resupplies it the same way. Tonight, somewhere over an ocean, a timer will go off inside a machine built for war. A crew member will open a small electric oven, and for a few minutes, 7 miles above the Earth, the air will smell like home. If you enjoyed this, check out What Happens Inside Air Force One when the President Travels. Bye for now.